Ah, how is everybody? Welcome this morning to Dutchman's Wood Shack. Nothing like smell of sawdust first thing in the morning, and a good cup of Big B coffee. Okay, I love this stuff. I got a place I go to. It's about a mile from my house. Got to know the owner real good. When he first started, he just had a baby, and anyway, they're doing good. What I want to talk about real quick is how I put this together. It came together somewhat better than I thought it would. Couple of things I did that were kind of a mistake, but it wasn't really a mistake. It's just something I should have done differently, but turned out pretty good, you know. Now, I have two coats on here, but as you can see, it's kind of dry, right? What I normally do when I do this is I put on a couple of coats depending on the wood, and then I let it sit overnight. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some 1,000 grit sandpaper, go over it really lightly, or I got 320-inch, 320 buffing wheels that I can use on this. But what I usually do is I put five or so coats on this. So now, this is where you go to fine tuning your bowls. Somebody asked me, my good friend Rob North asked me how I did this. I don't know if I have pictures, but here's how I was doing this. Okay, now, I was doing bowls that were simple. When I show people how to do it, I kind of teach them. I'm trying to get into the teaching mode and helping people. Trying to promote the lathe. I love turning. I've been doing this since 2016, so it's awesome. It's addicting, but it's also like one of those. It could be heartbreaking too. Okay, so first off, I got so much junk on here. Okay, so what did I do? Okay, what I did was, all right, I was turning stuff like this. I was showing people how simple it is to take a 2x, and this is, I think it's a 2x8 or 2x10. I'm not sure, but anyway, this is just a square piece of wood, right? My neighbor was having one of his house worked on, so I just took some scrap wood from the junk pile. Okay, so this is a 1x7, 1x8. Well, it's actually 7 inches. But what I did is I went 7 inch. Since this is 7 inches naturally the way they've cut it, so I went 7 inches that way too. Okay, so it's square, right? Now when I did this, I actually have some oak back here I had planed down. And this was off of a guy had remodeled his house, so I got the scraps. He gave me about 100 board feet of this oak, red oak. Really nice stuff, right? Okay, so what I normally do with stuff like this, sometimes I actually cut the square. Did the same thing here. All right. That's 7 1/8 and 7 1/8. All right. But here's what I do. I was fooling around one day. I see, practice makes perfect, right? Well, this is what I came up with. All right. That's out of another piece of wood. Just like that. It's just pine. All right. And it's actually come off the sister piece of this. What I do is I come up with designs. And so now this is kind of a prototype. And I'll probably just finish it off real lightly, but it's the pine. I don't know if I can stain it and make it look better, but anyway, that's how I came up with that. All right. Then I got to thinking, well, what if I took a piece of 1x? Now, there's a lot of wood over here. Now, this is hickory, all right? All right, you could do the same thing with this. what I normally do is, okay, so this is 6 and an eighth. So I would go down 6 and an eighth, cut it there, make it square, all right? Cut it there, make it square. Oh, that's all right. And then, okay, so I got this, when I was doing this, it was just, and I actually did a bunch like this, all right? So just plain. Okay, so then what I did with that is I ended up doing this, all right? Now, if you look on my page, you'll see a couple of different ways I've done stuff. This is the third, fourth different way I've done it. What I did is sandwich the two together, all right? So let's say I want a nice dark bottom. If I was doing, I could do this, right? I would do this on top of this, like that, right? And then once this glue dries, the next step, and this is where people are asking me, how did you do this? Well, you make sure that your piece of wood is square, for one. There's a couple different ways to do it, but the easiest way is to cut it this way and cut it this way. Now, you don't do the two cuts all at once. You just do it one at a time because you want to be able to clamp it. Now, so I cut it this way, right? So I want to clamp it. If I clamp it this way, it's going to move that way, right? Well, the idea is you make, I've got all the scrap wood around here. I basically take it on a piece of another scrap wood, and I make these corners so I can't, and then I clamp them. And that's how I make my like jig that it stays, the glue stays in one spot, and everything doesn't move around. And you have to do it several different ways. You kind of have to, what I normally do is if I cut it this way, then I got to clamp it this way, right? But I also clamp it this way to make sure these corners don't move. Okay, that's how I ended up with this. Now, I want to tell you that when I started doing this, I actually did it a different way, but I was trying something different. I tried this when it was round. Okay, so when I cut this, I basically had already gone, and that was before I dug into it, I'd already gone down across here. I cut it this way and cut it this way. The one thing I could tell you doing it round like this, you can't get a steady clamp on it. So the one thing that occurred, and it was on the one, it wasn't the first one going this way. It was on the second one going this way. What happened was the seam didn't catch all the glue and it dripped out. Because I had it going like this when the glue was drying. All right? So I'm trying different ways. But in the long run, it actually came out good, if not better than I thought it would. Yeah, it looks dull right now because I have to go, like I said, I have to go over it one more time with sandpaper, a couple more times. But when you're trying to experiment with like this, something like this, you kind of, that's why I use this stuff. Because if you make a mistake, like if I made a mistake on this, it could be firewood. You know, I'm not looking, and that didn't cost me anything. You could find scraps of wood. You go to a construction site and go dumpster diving. What do you call it? Garbology? I'm good at garbology. I don't want to say I'm cheap, but I look for affordability for everybody, not just for me. If you're trying to learn the lathe, I tell people over and over again, when I started, use scraps of wood, you know, scavenge. I've used trim. And a good example here is I'm working on one right here. I'll show you. This is actually these here are pallets off of wood. These are yeah, like this, and this are pallets off of pallet slats off a pallet. This, the bigger ones are actually off of sample boards from a flooring store. A friend of mine used to work at. He gave me all the stuff. I just cleaned it up, put them on here. So now with this step, this is doing a little bit different than other stuff. Okay, now you could turn and do the rings, but I'm doing a little bit different scenario. Okay, so now with this one, whoops, With this one, the object of the game is I have to square this up with this. All right, get all this rough stuff off. Same here. And then what I'll do, okay, now I got two things in mind. One is I was going to measure in so far, cut here, split that, and do the same thing here. And then put another piece like this in there. Well, kind of like this, right? So it would be like this, like this. Now, it wouldn't be this color. It would be something like this, right? Because it doesn't enhance it. Doing light over light wouldn't look right. Okay. There's two ways that I could do this too. I could do it again. I could go that way, like this, or that way. Now, remember, with me, I had planned on doing a 9-inch bowl. All right, so that's the outside perimeter, 9 inches. By the time I get through, I figure it's going to be 8 3/4, somewhere like that, because you're going to take that much off, you know. So when you're planning this, I always like experimenting wood. If I could get scraps of wood, I could show you. Now, if you're doing something like this, the stuff I got on here is easy. I scavenged. Didn't cost me anything. What cost me is the time, and it cost me for the glue. It cost me for a bunch of other stuff that I do to it, the finish, the sandpaper, the time and effort that I put into it. All right. If you want to learn turning, easiest way to do it is just get scrap wood. You're not fighting yourself. You're not buying. You go out and buy a piece of wood and $100 piece of wood. I just got back from Kirkland, and a friend of mine's kid just bought $350 worth of wood, mainly walnut, because he's a teacher. So he's a teacher at Naperville North. He's a wood shop. And it's his first year doing it, and everybody loved it. I donated some stuff. I'll donate as much as I can. Unfortunately, I need to use some for my business. But anyway, that's what I'm doing. And I thought I'd show you before tonight, tool time. But anyway, because I want to do that whole separate thing. All right? You got questions? You got questions and comments. I'm trying to get with people and show you how this is done. Shut up.